Among the funeral pyres of the holiest city in India hides an ancient mystery, an obscure, extreme, and fascinating community known as the Aghori Monks, who have lived for centuries under radical rules and rituals that defy the beliefs of any of us. These monks, feared by some and respected by others, dedicate their lives to the veneration of Shiva, the Hindu god of destruction and transformation. In their quest for liberation from the cycle of reincarnations, they have adopted unique and controversial practices, such as smoking pot plants to achieve spiritual states and connection with their gods, or consuming human remains, feces, and urine with the intention of destroying the ego and reaching their spiritual goal. These traditions and rituals have been instrumental in helping them live for centuries inside crematoria that they consider their home, places where they sleep, eat, and meditate among funeral pyres, escorted by a hidden and marginalized society known as the Untouchables. Don't miss this new video of Uncensored World to discover the enigmatic reality and life of the Agori Monks, known by many as the Cannibal Monks. Get ready to start a journey that we are sure will surprise you. Let's get started. To understand the Agori Monks, we must first explore realities such as karma, Hinduism, crematoriums in the Ganges, or societies such as the Untouchables, realities that revolve around the place they call home, Varanasi in northern India, also known as Varanasi, the holiest city in India and one of the oldest in the world. As you will discover, Varanasi is much more than a city. It is a spiritual epicenter, a place where life and death are uniquely intertwined. Hindus believe that dying here ensures the liberation of the soul, ending the cycle of reincarnations. This makes Varanasi a final destination for those seeking spiritual peace, and explains why its streets are lined with crematoria and funeral rituals. The banks of the Ganges River, which flows through this city, are constantly filled with pilgrims who immerse themselves in its sacred waters, make offerings, and collect water for their loved ones. Despite its pollution, the Ganges is considered a divine river, a direct link to the goddess Ganga, and a symbol of spiritual purification. Despite its small size, comparable in extension to cities like Florence in Italy, Varanasi is home to more than 1 million inhabitants, in addition to attracting thousands of pilgrims and tourists, every year fascinated by its mysticism and vibrant spirituality. In its bustling streets where smells, colors, and sounds mingle, all kinds of people coexist, among them sadhus, who are Hindu ascetics wrapped in orange robes, to locals, pilgrims, and foreign visitors, creating a unique atmosphere that seems to be taken from another reality. In this city that combines the mundane with the sacred, you will also find the Aghori Monks, extremist Hindu ascetics who live mainly in the city's crematoria, a place that, as you will now understand in more detail, is crucial to the spiritual rituals of the Hindus. The central philosophy of the Aghori Monks is based on the rejection of duality, that is, the idea that there is a separation between the sacred and the profane. For them, everything in the universe is sacred, regardless of whether society perceives it as pure or impure, high or low. This approach allows them to fully accept all aspects of existence, including those considered obscure and disturbing to the majority. According to these monks, attaining spiritual liberation is only possible when one overcomes this dualistic view and recognizes that divinity is found in everything. As a consequence of their rejection of this duality, the Aghori challenge many of the social norms and taboos that most people consider unquestionable. They categorically reject the restrictions based on caste, gender, and concepts of ritual purity that predominate in Indian society. As you will discover below, they live with a social group known as the Untouchables, a marginalized and stigmatized community, considered by many to be impure and relegated to the most dangerous and despised tasks. Although it may seem otherwise when seeing their appearance or knowing some of their practices, the philosophy of these monks, recognized as cannibals, promotes equality and acceptance of all human beings, so they are often associated with activities considered impure, such as interacting with lepers, or performing practices that challenge conventional ideas of purity. In their intention to break the barriers of fear and rejection of death, their rituals include activities in ghats, which are the steps along sacred rivers such as the Ganges in Varanasi, and we will also know in detail where they have contact with the deceased. For example, they have been seen meditating near decomposing bodies or using skulls as ritual vessels. These practices are not done out of morbidity or contempt for life, but as a way of fully accepting the transience of existence and embracing the end as a natural part of the life cycle. In Varanasi, these enormous staircases known as ghats divide the city, and there are more than 80 of them. Each ghat has a different purpose. Some are dedicated to purification rituals, others to offering ceremonies, and the most famous, such as the Manikarnika Ghat and the Harishchandra Ghat in Varanasi, are for cremations. It is here that the Aghori monks have made their home, surrounded by funeral pyres and the constant smoke of bodies being consumed in the sacred fire. The reason these monks and thousands of pilgrims are here is the sacred Ganges River and the powers or beliefs surrounding it. This river, known as Mother Ganga, is considered a channel between the earthly world and the divine. Hindus believe that bathing in its waters purifies the soul, and that dying on the banks of the river, particularly in this city of Varanasi, frees from the cycle of reincarnations, granting what is known as moksha, which is the ultimate spiritual liberation. For this reason, many devout Indians wish to have their bodies cremated here, so that their ashes are scattered in the river, ensuring their journey to salvation. These crematoriums on the ghats operate day and night in a constant stream of funeral ceremonies. The Ganges, the crematoria, and the cycle of reincarnation are fundamental elements to better understand the Aghori monks, but so is understanding the basis of the religion that guides their life: Hinduism. Hinduism is one of the oldest and most complex religions in the world. Unlike many other monotheistic religions, Hinduism has a multitude of gods and goddesses, each with unique characteristics, special powers, and depictions that seem straight out of a Marvel-like fantasy universe. These deities, which can take human, animal, or even hybrid forms, are not only cult figures, but also tools for devotees to understand abstract concepts about the universe and existence. One of the pillars of Hinduism is the concept of samsara, which is the eternal cycle of birth, death, and reincarnation. According to this belief, every action we perform leaves an imprint called karma, which determines our destiny in future lives. The ultimate goal is to break this cycle by attaining moksha, or spiritual liberation, which allows the person to merge with the divine and escape the wheel of earthly existence. This moksha is what the Aghori monks pursue, living in a way that is mysterious and obscure to many. Among the many Hindu deities, Shiva, the god of the Aghori, occupies a special place. Known as the god of destruction and transformation, Shiva represents not only the end, but also rebirth. His function is to destroy the old to make way for the new, a metaphor for the cycle of life. In Hindu iconography, Shiva is often depicted with a snake around his neck, seated in a meditative posture, or dancing on ignorance, symbolizing his role as the master of life and death. For the Aghori, Shiva is the perfect model of detachment and transformation. They revere him not only as a god, but as a guide to break away from the material and emotional attachments that bind them to the earthly world. And it is this fervent faith in Shiva and the pursuit of moksha that makes the Aghori probably the most extraordinary, and also the strangest, monks on the planet. With all this in mind, it is easier to understand the Aghori. These monks do not seek comfort or recognition. Their only goal is to attain what they call moksha by destroying the ego. The Aghori live in the crematoriums where the remains of faithful devotees who are transferred to these ghats along the Ganges in their quest for liberation from samsara are cremated, a place they share with those known as untouchables, a Hindu society as mystical and mysterious as the Aghori, who are in charge of handling the bodies on the pyres and ensuring that the ceremonies are performed in the best way. The work in the crematoria is in charge of the untouchables, also known as dams. The term untouchables comes from the ancient caste system in India, where people in charge of handling corpses, performing cremations, and other tasks considered impure were seen as contaminated, both physically and spiritually. According to Hindu beliefs, touching these people could transfer this impurity, or even the sins associated with their activities, relegating them to the lowest level of the social hierarchy. This stigma set them apart from society, preventing them from interacting or mingling with other castes. Although caste discrimination has been officially banned in India since the mid-20th century, the reality is that dams still perform these jobs, as their role is still considered indispensable in funeral rituals, as they are the ones who prepare the pyres, handle the bodies, and ensure that the ceremonies are performed according to tradition. Their expertise is indispensable, as the process must be carried out with precision for the body to be completely consumed. However, this reality is also a source of economic inequality. Wealthier families can pay for large quantities of high-quality wood, which burns slowly, ensuring a prolonged and ceremonious cremation. On the other hand, those with fewer resources buy less wood, which often means that the remains do not burn completely and end up in the river. Amidst this mysticism-laden environment and seemingly dark rituals, Aghori monks live alongside the dams in the crematoria. But unlike the dams, whose work is an inherited tradition, the Aghori voluntarily choose to live in the ghats as part of their spiritual path. For them, the crematoria are more than places of work. They are sites of meditation and transformation. Here, surrounded by the smoke of the pyres and the ashes of the dead, Aghori monks seek to transcend the barriers between life and death, the pure and the impure. This environment, which to many would seem macabre, is for them a sacred space where they can confront mortality directly, with the aim of overcoming the ego and approaching spiritual liberation. In the cremation ghats, the Aghori coexist with the dams, who are in charge of the physical work of cremation. Although their roles are different, both groups share the link to the cycle of life that defines Varanasi. For the dams, handling the bodies and preparing the pyres is an inherited tradition. But for the Aghori, this space is a spiritual laboratory, a place where detachment and connection with the divine are achieved through extreme practices. Recognizing Aghori monks in these areas is not difficult. They cover their bodies with ashes from cremated corpses, a symbolic act that represents their acceptance of mortality and their renunciation of the material world. Their appearance can be striking. They usually have long, unkempt hair or are completely shaven, and wear only a loincloth or even nothing, depending on their degree of detachment. In addition, it is common to see them with human skulls, which they use as bowls to eat and drink, in an act that symbolizes non-discrimination between the pure and impure. The Aghori's relationship with ashes is deeply spiritual. They consider that covering themselves with them brings them closer to Shiva, the god of destruction and transformation, reminding them that everything in life is transitory. They are also said to consume human remains, though not as a habitual act or out of necessity, but as part of specific rituals intended to break down ego barriers. These remains come from incompletely cremated bodies that reach the river, a common destination for those who cannot afford enough wood for a complete cremation. The consumption of certain psychoactive plants plays an important role in Aghori life. They smoke large quantities of this plant, as they believe it helps them enter deep meditative states and connect with Shiva. For them, cannabis is not just a stimulant, but a spiritual tool that allows them to leave earthly distractions behind and concentrate on their practice. Although some Aghori may sell small quantities to other ascetics or interested tourists, their primary use remains strictly ritual. An interesting curiosity is that the Aghori consider these plants a divine gift from Shiva, who according to Hindu tradition discovered their properties to facilitate meditation. In rituals, consumption is not done indiscriminately, but is surrounded by prayers and mantras that seek to channel the spiritual energy of the plant. This reinforces the idea that its use is not recreational, but a means to transcend the mental and spiritual barriers that bind human beings to matter. But there are much more controversial practices in the Aghori, such as the consumption of other substances considered impure, such as feces, urine, or garbage. This act, which for most would be unimaginable, has a spiritual purpose for them: to destroy any notion of repulsion, pride, or ego, and to accept everything as a divine manifestation. According to their philosophy, nothing in the universe is inherently impure, and to reject something would be to reject a part of Shiva. We are sure that you will have been surprised, but as you can see, the world hides extraordinary realities and mysteries that are difficult for many to understand. How did you find it? What do you think about these practices? What surprised you the most? Pause the video and leave us your comment. You know that doing so is the best way to help the channel, and we will love to read you. So, thank you. Living with the Dams in the Ghats is unique. While the Aghori seek spiritual liberation, the Dams, coming from a historically marginalized caste, perform their work out of tradition and necessity. The Dams, also known as untouchables, have been linked to the crematoria for centuries. According to ancient Hindu beliefs, their contact could transfer impurities or even sins, relegating them to the lowest level of society. However, their role is essential for the performance of funeral rituals, and their knowledge of the ceremonies makes them indispensable figures in these spaces. Cremation in Varanasi is a deeply symbolic act. The fire, seen as purifying, destroys the physical body and liberates the soul, allowing it to move on to its next destination in the cycle of reincarnations. The use of wood, which varies in quality and price, also reflects social inequalities. Wealthier families purchase higher quality wood, which burns more slowly and ensures a complete and ceremonious cremation. Conversely, those who cannot afford enough wood see the remains of their loved ones end up in the river, becoming part of the Aghori spiritual environment. For the Aghori, these incompletely cremated remains are not waste, but a representation of life and death that is part of their spiritual practice. Their life in the crematoria is a testament to their commitment to a philosophy that challenges all social and religious norms, offering a unique and radical perspective on existence, ego, and connection to the divine. As you are observing, the crematoriums of Varanasi are not only places of farewell, but also scenes of transformation and rebirth, both physical and spiritual. In this environment, the Aghori find the path to their goal: to destroy their ego, embrace the divinity in all that surrounds them, and attain final liberation. At first glance, Agori monks may appear to be intimidating figures. Their appearance, marked by ash-covered bodies, human skulls used as utensils, and practices considered taboo, generates fear and incomprehension. However, the Aghori insist that they are not dangerous. Their philosophy of life, though radical and controversial, is deeply rooted in spirituality and detachment. For them, everything they do is a means to a higher purpose: to eliminate hatred, destroy the ego, and find happiness in making others happy. The Aghori hold that their way of life is a way of accepting and transcending the dualities of the world: the pure and the impure, the good and the bad, life and its end. According to their vision, all human beings are equal in the face of death, and any judgment or discrimination is a construct of the ego. By breaking with social norms and confronting what others consider impure or forbidden, they seek to free their souls from earthly attachments and draw closer to the divine. Their extreme practices, such as meditating among corpses, covering themselves with ashes of the dead, or consuming elements that others reject, are not intended to frighten or provoke, but to challenge preconceived ideas about what it means to be human. For the Aghori, everything in the universe is a manifestation of Shiva, and to reject anything, even the most impure by social standards, would be to reject a part of the divine. This perspective, though difficult for many to understand, is the core of their philosophy. It is important to remember that the Aghori do not impose their way of life on anyone. Although their practices may be shocking to those who do not share their worldview, their purpose is not to cause harm or impose fear. On the contrary, many of them see their existence as a service to others. They claim that their happiness comes from making others happy, whether by sharing their knowledge, offering blessings, or simply demonstrating that it is possible to transcend the barriers imposed by ego and social norms. These monks represent a radically different way of looking at life and its purpose. Their philosophy invites us to reflect on our own prejudices and fears, and to consider that what appears strange or frightening from the outside may have a deeper purpose. Although their way of life will never be understood or accepted by all, the Aghori remind us that there are many ways to seek connection with the divine and to find meaning in existence. Beyond their appearance and practices, they are first and foremost spiritual seekers who have chosen a path that is extreme but deeply meaningful to them. From Uncensored World, we hope that this video has helped you to discover one of the most extraordinary and mysterious societies on the planet, and that it has been as interesting for you as it has been for us. What do you think about the Aghori? Would you dare to meet them? It will be great to read you in the comments, so do not hesitate to do it and leave us a nice like. It's the best way to help us to keep working to bring every week interesting content like this. Or like this video that you can watch now to discover another of the most mysterious and beautiful places on the planet. Click on it. You will enjoy it.